Selamat pagi, magandang umaga, sawadika, chawbuiseng, sabay tonsao, mingalaba, arun swasde, bom dia, good morning and welcome to Jakarta. Get a big round of applause. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in all the languages of ASEAN, I am Sarah Wayne, and we warmly welcome you to the ASEAN for the People's Conference AFPC 2025. And ladies and gentlemen, the idea of AFPC was born from a simple but urgent reality. Despite ASEAN's vision of a people-centered, people-oriented community, too many of our citizens still feel that ASEAN is distant from our daily lives. And for this very reason, Foreign Policy Committee of Indonesia, together with CSOs from all over Southeast Asia, have taken the initiative to organize the AFPC with the aim of advancing a truly people-centered ASEAN community. And of course, as you can see, this conference is open and free to the public. And today, we are joined by over 8,000 participants. Can I have a big round of applause for each and every one of you here? And on this very pleasant morning, allow us to extend our warmest welcome to our guest of honor on behalf of the Indonesian Foreign Minister, Sugiono, Director General for ASEAN Cooperation, Sidarto Suryodipuro. Welcome, sir. Please give a round of applause. And we'd like to also extend our warmest welcome to all ambassadors, diplomats, FPCI senior fellows, politicians, corporate leaders, but most importantly, the people of ASEAN, representatives of think tanks and CSOs, journalists, academicians, students of all layers of society. Can I have another big round of applause for everyone from all layers of society here this morning. And of course, AFPC would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. From Global Citizen, Golden Horse Digital Investment Bank, Australia Mission to ASEAN, ASEAN Australia Center, World, Pusat Studi Asia Tenggara Prof. Hashim Jalal Center for Southeast Asia Studies, Yayasan Tahia, SCG. Our in-kind sponsors, Huawei Indonesia, Grab Indonesia, Prima, and Teh Botol Sosro. and our 116 civil society organization partners from all 11 countries of Southeast Asia who have flown all the way to Jakarta to be with us here today. Thank you to our CSO partners. And of course, we'd like to also thank our media partners, katadata.co.id, Rakyat Merdeka, rm.id, Text from IR, The Conversations Indonesia, Unexplained, BTV, Berita Satu, InvestorDaily.id, JakartaGlobe.id, Metro TV, MetroTVNews.com, Bisnis Indonesia, Bisnis.com, Data Indonesia, Liputan6.com, Merdeka.com, CNN Indonesia, Kompas.com, Kompas TV, Tribunnews.com, Republika, Tirto.id, Kok Bisa, Si Paling HI Media, and the Southeast Asia Desk. Once again, we thank you to our media partners. But Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed to our main event this morning, let us take a moment to honor the memory of the late Bapak Jamil Maidan Flores, a Philippine national who spent his life here in Indonesia, working behind the scenes, pushing for a closer ASEAN. Bapak Jamil, who was a senior fellow at FPCI, passed away last June, and his final legacy was creating the name of ASEAN for the People's Conference, and it has finally come to fruition today. And ladies and gentlemen, we also take this moment to acknowledge the recent earthquake in Cebu, which has caused the great loss of life and of course hardship, and we extend our deepest sympathies and condolences and of course solidarity to all victims, their families, and the people of the Philippines during this difficult time. And ladies and gentlemen, to officially open AFPC, we kindly invite you to please rise for the ASEAN anthem. You may now be seated. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in just a moment, we will listen to the opening remarks to be delivered by the founder and chairman of FPCI, Dr. Dino Patijalal. But before that, we'd like to take a moment to go behind the curtain. What you see here today at AFPC are the lights, the sessions, and of course, the exhibitions and the energy of thousands of people. And this is the result of months of dedication, late nights, and of course, endless teamwork. This is a story of passion, creativity, and commitment from the team at FPCI who made the ASEAN for the People's Conference possible. So without further ado, please do enjoy this special behind-the-scenes video showcasing the people who work to bring AFPC to life.
Kalau generasi saya itu obses mengenai apa yang kita bisa capai, bukan apa yang kita bisa dapat. Anything I need to do, I will do.
lagi handle banyak banget CSO, 100 lebih, 100 plus CSOs dari seluruh ASEAN basically. Lumayan, udah nangis sekali kayaknya gara-gara itu. Bukan karena CSO-nya ya, cuman maksudnya karena the workload gitu.
I work very hard on preparing for this ASEAN for the People's Conference or AFPC like almost 24/7.
This is really the most important thing I ever done in my life. So I'm looking forward to it.
AFPC ini pertama buat FPCI sendiri dan buat tim kita juga. Jadi semuanya serba baru dan persiapannya jadi lebih hektik gitu ya. Yang pasti aku dibantu sama dengan teman-teman aku lainnya. Ada Tika, ada Kak Wahyu, ada Fajrul dan teman-teman.
Acaranya emang menarik untuk didatengin. This is a big chance for me as well untuk benar-benar connect with other CSOs dan jatuhnya memperluas koneksi juga kan.
Yang aku harapkan ya pastinya semua yang telah kita kerjain bisa lancar segala urusan pekerjaan kita.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Dino Patijala.
Di belakang saja. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ambassadors, Ambassador Arto Suryo Dipuro, my good friend, and congratulations on your new post. Members of ASEAN family, friends of ASEAN, peoples of ASEAN, and all the CSOs who are here today. Welcome to the largest civil society gathering in ASEAN's history. Let's give a big hand for that. I think it is, but I stand corrected, yeah? So if there's anything in the past that was bigger, please let us know. But this is certainly a unique gathering because the stars in this conference is not leaders, officials, ministers, or diplomats, although they are all extremely important, of course. The stars in this conference are the people. People like Alma from Timor-Leste is an organization who care for orphans. My daughter actually worked for them for almost a month. People like Ustad Ozi from Jaga Arsi Pesantren, who teach about Abrahamic peace at a time when Islamophobia and anti-Semitism is rising in many parts of the world. People like Catalyst for Change from Vietnam, who help marginalized communities. Korma from Philippines, who look after turtle conservation. Youth Lead in Thailand, who are in the business of empowering the youth. Gamlang Chai from Laos, who work on mental health awareness, and so on and so on. You can all go outside to see the booth where they display what they're doing. There's about 120 CSOs taking part in today's conference, and each of them have done incredible things for their society. And we could invite even more, but there's not enough space. The hotel says you can only have as many as 120 booths in this facility. And interestingly, when we asked them, who are your peers in Southeast Asia, right? A lot of them say, we don't have any. We work in our own silos. We don't know our peer group across the national border. They don't connect or collaborate with fellow NGOs in other ASEAN countries, and a lot of them don't really have a feel for the region and what it has to offer them. And I think this is the reality which is common in most regions of the world. And this is why we are convening this ASEAN for the People's Conference. It is an independent effort by the people, for the people. And it is an effort to connect, engage, and synergize the peoples of ASEAN. And as you just saw from the video right now, hundreds of young people work day and night with a great spirit to find out on their own who is out there in terms of ASEAN NGOs and how they can connect with them. And a lot of these young people are unpaid volunteers, right? They do this out of the benefit of their love for ASEAN. And believe it or not, through their work, they reach out to 1,300. Think about it, 1,300, 1,300 NGOs and civil society organizations throughout Southeast Asia. And the majority of these NGOs are small, underfunded, they don't even have means to travel, and they are struggling to do their work properly. Most of them do not get the validation they deserve, and in fact, most of them are not asking for validation. But what impressed me is that each of them are brimming with the fire of idealism to do good for their society. So let's give all these NGOs a big hand. You know, which is why we've come up with a theory about regionalism, right? What is that theory? In order to fix the region, yes, you have to get the politics right, the geopolitics right, and yes, you have to get the geoeconomics right, but you also have to get the geocivics right. Peace has many layers. Indonesia and Timor-Leste had a very painful separation after the referendum in 1999. But within a short time, the two sides reconciled, and now Indonesia and Timor-Leste are the best of neighbors, and there's a high degree of trust between them. But what made this peace possible and durable is the reconciliation between the opposing groups at the grassroots level. So it's not enough for governments to get along. The peoples also have to get along. Governments like me and Pak Marty always stress the importance of strategic trust and the danger of trust deficit. Well, strategic trust at the top cannot be sustainable if there are mistrust among the peoples. And indeed, civil societies have a very strategic place in the world order. You know, the UN Charter, imagine a world order where all nation states work together in peace and engage in cooperation. But the UN Charter also states it's not just nation states, but civil societies and citizens must live in freedom, social progress, and dignity. And indeed, the UN Charter, as well as the ASEAN Charter, all begin with the words, "We the peoples." So as we see today the world order unraveling and heading in the wrong direction, where rules and international law are being trampled, guess what? It is civil societies that are keeping the world sane by being conscientious and actively reminding us about what is right and what is wrong. I mean, we can see this in the crisis in Gaza, where despite the government position, it is the civil societies in the United States, in Europe, in Canada, in Africa, in Latin America, in Japan, many other places, including in Southeast Asia, civil societies have risen loudly to defend human rights, uphold humanity, and provide the necessary moral compass to respond to the horrific genocide that, according to the UN Commission, is being committed by Israel. So here too, in Indonesia, in 1998, we had a political crisis, right? And we had instability to the degree that there were 4 presidents in 3 years between 1997 and 2000. We had President Suharto, President Habibie, President Gus Dur, and then President Megawati. Things were very unstable, right? But what kept Indonesia from self-destruction, from breaking apart, from implosion, and from becoming a failed state? You know what it is? Civil society. Good, solid civil society who kept their faith in democracy and kept insisting on reform and provided the necessary leadership, grassroots leadership, when called for. So civil society, the people in any country, any political system, any region is the key to peace, progress, and prosperity. And you know, in the last decade or so, ASEAN has been seized with the notion of ASEAN centrality and ASEAN unity. And of course, these two things will always be critical to ASEAN's future in a transitioning world order. But make no mistake, the next milestone for ASEAN is about how to become a genuine, solid, and resilient ASEAN community anchored on the people. It is about grassrooting ASEAN. In Southeast Asia, peoples are like a vast, deep ocean yet to be discovered. It's so diverse, so full of potentials, so much goodwill, and yet so delicate with a lot of sensitivities. You know, Indonesia alone has 600,000 CSOs, yeah, according to a government figure. Vietnam is said to have 70,000 issue-based organizations. They don't call it civil society organizations. The Philippines has 310 CSOs per 100,000 people, the highest per capita in Southeast Asia. And Malaysia is next with 270 CSOs per 100,000 people. So celebrating ASEAN is not just about celebrating diversity. It is about celebrating creativity and encouraging connectivity. The people, as the theme of this conference suggests, the people is ASEAN's greatest resource. You know, in the course of preparing for this conference, we have made some discoveries, interesting discoveries. One, while people may know about ASEAN, very few know about ASEAN community. Knowing about ASEAN and believing in ASEAN community are two different things. And there's a long way to go before we can reach a point where most citizens of 600 million people in Southeast Asia believe in the notion of ASEAN community. And that is by far our biggest homework today and for the future. We also found that different governments in Southeast Asia have nuanced understanding about people-centered community. We also found that different governments in Southeast Asia relate to civil societies differently. They have their own ways and they have their own terms. So achieving people-centered community is a lot more complex task than we would think. Getting our citizens to believe in ASEAN will not happen naturally, organically. It will not happen by itself. It will require political will, it will require plan, it will require strategy, it will require resources, it will require efforts, and it will require consistency. And most of all, it will require both top-down as well as ground-up approach, just like we're doing here at the ASEAN for the People's Conference. So what lies ahead? We envision this conference, ASEAN for the People's Conference, to become a routine flagship event for people-centered ASEAN community. Inshallah, bisa. And to become a constructive partner for ASEAN governments and dialogue partners. We envision that civil society organizations can be independent drivers of ASEAN community. So not just governments in a top-bottom approach, but civil societies themselves in a ground-up approach. We envision creating a large, independent database of ASEAN CSOs that would allow them to connect with one another and possibly work together based on mutual benefit and goodwill for the benefit of our region. And we envision having people-driven ASEAN Week at the location of every summit annually. And don't tell us it can't be done, because as you can see, this is all done by the people with their own efforts. And most of all, we envision a region where the peoples have full ownership of ASEAN community, where they know, respect, and love ASEAN because ASEAN work for them. You know, the ASEAN community that we're building is by far our best asset for a peaceful and vibrant Southeast Asia. And we all have to be grateful that in a turbulent world where there is war in Europe, where there's war in Africa, where there's war in the Middle East, ASEAN is largely at peace. And it is a hard-earned peace and the result of a robust regionalism long in the making. You know, political scientists point out that the idea of nations, of regionalism, you know, these are called imagined communities. These are abstract political and psychological expressions. They exist in the minds of men and women. And, you know, I'm a political scientist, so I get that. But knowing that, that means that we have to make sure that ASEAN exists in the minds of the peoples who live in Southeast Asia. We must make sure that our respective nationalism, and we're all nationalists, we all love our countries, we must make sure that our nationalism and our regionalism go together, because this is the best pathway for the future. I see a future when citizens of Southeast Asia hear the word ASEAN, they will automatically, oh, that's our market, that's our consumer, that's our customer, that's our investor, that's our business partner. I see a future when citizens of Southeast Asia hear the words ASEAN, they will say, that's my home, that's my neighborhood, that's my safe place in a crazy world. And I see a future when citizens of Southeast Asia hear the word ASEAN, they all will say, that's my family. So let us build the ASEAN community, a genuine people-centered ASEAN community from the top down, but most importantly for us, from the ground up. I thank you.
Once again, give your applause to Dr. Dino Patijalal, founder and chairman of FPCI. Once again, we thank you, Padino, for the welcoming and opening remarks for today's conference. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, for our next agenda, we have the honor to listen to an address by the Secretary General of ASEAN, Dr. Kao Kim Horn. Please give a round of applause.
I see Dr. Dino Patijalal, founder of the Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to you all. Somewhere in ASEAN right now, a young coder in Manila is building the next big app. A farmer in the Mekong Delta is using digital tools to increase yields. A teacher in Jakarta is preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist. Across our region, in cities, villages, and communities, people are shaping the future. This is ASEAN's greatest resource, its people. From the Bangkok Declaration of 1967 through the ASEAN Community Vision 2025, and now toward ASEAN 2045, our shared future, one principle, one conviction has remained constant. Our peoples must be the foundation of our cooperation and everything we do. At the outset, I wish to commend the foreign policy community of Indonesia, FPCI, under the able leadership of Dr. Dino Patijalal, for convening this valuable conference. It is a privilege to be in the presence of leaders and representatives of civil society from across the region, because your voices, your ideas, your aspirations, your critiques make ASEAN real. This conference is not only timely, it is essential and relevant. We live in a period of profound transition and transformation. Great power rivalry has resurfaced. The global economy faces headwinds, and climate change is reshaping our societies. Yet even amid these uncertainties, ASEAN has endured, and it has endured because of its peoples. Almost 700 million strong, diverse in culture, language, and belief, yet bound by creativity, resilience, and energy. To harness this resource fully is both our greatest opportunity as well as our greatest responsibility. For almost 6 decades, ASEAN has been about keeping and promoting the peace, sustained economic growth, and building shared identity and prosperity. But today, more than ever, it must also be about empowering our citizens to shape their own future dynamically. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, why are our peoples ASEAN's most valuable resource? First, because they are the foundation of everything we do. No matter how ambitious our roadmaps or how lofty our declarations, ASEAN succeeds only if our peoples feel secure, prosper, and see their lives improving. Second, because they are the drivers of innovation. From bustling capitals to rural villages, it is farmers, workers, teachers, entrepreneurs, activists, and especially our youth who fuels ASEAN's dynamism. Third, because they embody ASEAN's diversity, hundreds of ethnicities, belief systems, and traditions, woven into a fabric of unity in diversity. That capacity to thrive together, despite differences, is what makes ASEAN resilient in an uncertain world. In short, our people are both the means and the end of ASEAN's project. ASEAN exists for them and with them. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the heart of ASEAN is its peoples. And to see this more clearly, let us look at ASEAN's three community pillars: political security, economic, and social cultural, and ASEAN connectivity as living commitments to improve lives. These are sometimes described in policy language, but let us look at them through the eyes of our peoples. Peace is the most fundamental requirement. Without it, there can be no opportunity, no prosperity, no future. Since 1967, ASEAN has prevented major conflict in our region. This is not a small achievement in a world where geopolitical fault lines are deepening. ASEAN has done so by upholding dialogue, diplomacy, consensus, and nonviolence as guiding principles. Because of ASEAN, generations have grown up without war among member states. The Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia, TSC, the ASEAN Regional Forum, AOF, the East Asia Summit, EAS. These mechanisms may seem technical, but they safeguard the lived reality of stability that millions depend on. But today, security is more than the absence of conflict. Our peoples face new threats: cyber attacks that endanger businesses and privacy, violent extremism that preys on the vulnerable, trafficking and piracy that undermine safety, and climate-related disasters that displace people and communities. This is why the ASEAN political security community is so important. It expands our definition of security to include disaster resilience, counterterrorism, and cooperation on cyber and maritime safety. It recognizes that the measure of peace is not just stability among states, but safety in the lives of ordinary citizens throughout the region. Peace is not abstract. Peace, a parent sending children to school without fear. Peace is a shopkeeping opening for business knowing the streets are safe. Peace is digital space where young people can innovate without threat. This is what our people expect and deserve from ASEAN. The ASEAN Economic Community. ASEAN today is the third largest trading bloc and the fifth largest economy in the world, and is projected to be the fourth largest by 2030. But growth alone is not enough. The real question is, do our peoples feel it in their daily lives? The AAC was built to create a single market and production base, to open doors for trade and investment. However, economic integration is not about trade, tariffs, or treaties alone. It is about livelihoods. It is about the micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs, that make up 97% of businesses in ASEAN, many of them family-run. Their success translates directly into household prosperity. The AEC, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, and our digital economy agreements are not ends in themselves. They are tools to ensure that our people, workers, entrepreneurs, teachers, and innovators can access opportunities and thrive. The ASEAN Social Cultural Community. This is where ASEAN's heart beats most visibly and lives in the daily rhythms of our people. When the Filipino band plays in Bangkok or a Thai movie screens in Hanoi, ASEAN lives in culture. When a Cambodian student studies in Singapore or Lao entrepreneur partners with a Malaysian counterpart, ASEAN grows in empathy and solidarity. This is why the ASEAN Social Cultural Community matters. It strengthens civil society, promotes cultural exchange, champions sustainable development, builds bonds of friendship, and bridges the communities across borders within ASEAN. It recognizes that integration is not just about markets and institutions, but about identity, solidarity, and pride in belonging to ASEAN. The social cultural pillar is the human face and the heart of ASEAN. It is where policy meets people and where the motto, one vision, one identity, one community, becomes a reality. Or as in the disaster management sector, it is known as one ASEAN, one response. Connectivity is often spoken of in terms of infrastructure, roads, railroads, ports, and cables. But behind every road is a trader who can now bring her goods to market. Behind every undersea cable is a student accessing online learning. Behind every new airport link is a family reuniting across borders. Connectivity is about people. The Master Plan on ASEAN Connectivity 2025 and its successor are not just technical roadmaps. They are human stories of aspirations and connections. Our peoples are not passive beneficiaries of ASEAN's work. They are active participants, contributors, and partners. From the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, AICHA, to the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children, ACWC, to initiatives like the ASEAN Center for Public Health Emergencies and Emerging Diseases, ACFED. These institutions matter because they speak to our people's needs, rights, interests, and priorities. Civil society, too, has been essential in expanding ASEAN's people-centered focus. ASEAN has long supported people-centric platforms, conferences, fora, research networks, youth competitions, and today's conference adds another vibrant space for bottom-up engagement. Our people's voices, from farmers and fish folks to climate activists, academics, and youth, must continue to participate, contribute, and guide us toward ASEAN 2045. As we gather here, we are reminded of a fundamental truth. ASEAN is for the peoples, and ASEAN belongs to the peoples. Our community will thrive only if it is also built up from the ground through active participation in those it serves. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, if ASEAN's peoples are its greatest resource and asset, then its youth are the most dynamic expression of that resource, not liability. 1 in 3 ASEAN citizens is under 35, over 220 million young people. By 2038, ASEAN's youth population will peak, offering a real demographic dividend and strength. But this dividend is not automatic. It depends on whether we'll invest in education, digital skills, real capacities, and meaningful participation. Youth are already driving change. Across the region, they are building startups, pioneering technologies, running social enterprises, and leading campaigns for climate action for the present and future generations. They are innovators in cities and changemakers in rural communities. This is why initiatives such as the ASEAN Work Plan on Youth 2021-2025 and ASEAN Youth Development Index are critical. They give voice to youth aspirations, measure progress, and create platforms for their leadership. Digital literacy is essential, is especially crucial. In a world shaped by artificial intelligence, robotics, and green technologies, our youth must be equipped with future-ready skills with positive and constructive mindsets. If not, the digital divide could become a new line of exclusion. Our youth are not just beneficiaries of development. They are shapers of it. They are not only tomorrow's leaders, they are leaders of today. Our duty is to give them the necessary tools, the essential platforms, the real opportunities, and the reservoir trust to lead boldly and responsibly. We must ask ourselves, what world will today's 15 years old inherit in 2045? When ASEAN turns 78, will she inherit megacities connected by high-speed train, powered by renewable energy, with thriving green jobs? Or will she inherit a world ravaged by climate change, fractured by rivalry, and defined by inequality? The answer depends entirely on what we do today with clarity, with courage, and with strong commitment. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, looking ahead, the question is this: how do we ensure that ASEAN's greatest resource, its people, will continue to thrive sustainably? At the 46th ASEAN Summit, our leaders adopted ASEAN 2045, our shared future, and its strategic plans. This is not just another vision statement. It's a long-term roadmap for the next 2 decades, charting a path towards a resilient, innovative, dynamic, and people-centered ASEAN. And let us remember, by 2045, today's youth will be tomorrow's leaders. The students in our classrooms today will be the innovators, policymakers, thought leaders, and change makers of ASEAN tomorrow. ASEAN 2045 was shaped not by governments alone, but through broad consultation with many stakeholders, including civil society, youth groups, business leaders, and academics. This participatory process ensures that the roadmap reflects the aspirations of Southeast Asians at all levels. Its vision is enduring peace and inclusive prosperity. It imagines a Southeast Asia where citizens feel peaceful, secure, skilled, connected, and proud to belong. But let us picture it more vividly. Imagine ASEAN in 2045, children in rural Myanmar receiving world-class education online. Farmers in Lapidia are selling produce through digital marketplace to consumers across the region. Renewable energy powering our cities, with ASEAN a leader in green technologies. And the youth of today, the coders, farmers, teachers I spoke of earlier, sitting as the region's leaders, innovators, thought leaders, and change makers. This is not fantasy. It is within reach. It is possible. It is real. But only if we anchor ASEAN's journey in the living experiences, needs, priorities, and dreams of its peoples. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the ASEAN story has always been about its people. In 1967, 5 countries came together with a simple belief that cooperation was better than conflict. Collaboration was better than confrontation. That belief has now united 10 nations, soon 11. It has built a culture of dialogue, habit of consultation, mechanism of cooperation, and the spirit of consensus. But its true achievement is that it has allowed our people to live, to learn, to work, to cooperate, and to dream in peace. Now, as we look ahead, our challenge is not only to preserve what has been built, but to deepen it, to make ASEAN not just a region of governments, but a true community of its peoples. To move from policy dialogue to live reality. So let us remember, if we nurture and invest in our peoples, ASEAN will thrive and be peaceful and prosperous. If we empower our youth, ASEAN will endure and be strong. If we unite our diversity, ASEAN will shine. Because ASEAN's greatest resource, its people, are the heart of our shared future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sekjen Kao, for the remarks and, of course, the address. And now, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to a very special part of the ASEAN for the People's Conference, which is the ASEAN People's Aspirations Session. And this is the heart of AFPC, a session where we bring together and we bring forward the voices, the hopes, and of course the dreams of the people of all 11 countries of Southeast Asia. So without further ado, allow me to invite the first presenter of the ASEAN People's Aspirations. Please give a round of applause.
Good morning. I'm Moon. I lead Asia Pacific Public Policy for Tools for Humanity, a Silicon Valley company founded by the two of the world's top 100 AI leaders, Sam Altman and Alex Blania. So why are we here at this conference today? To talk about society, to talk about technology, to talk about the future. But I come just with one message, only one message. The future of ASEAN is us. The future of ASEAN is the real people, real humans. My aspiration for ASEAN is a region that is digitally smart, where technology strengthens trust, protects privacy, and empowers people. As technology grows more powerful with artificial intelligence, our contribution and Tools for Humanity is developing technology that reflects this belief. Proof of human, privacy protected, and people first. More than half of ASEAN's 680 million citizens are under 35. The youngest digital population on Earth, and I can see a lot of faces here today. This is not just an advantage. This is our greatest strength in ASEAN. But strength without voice is fragile, and a future without people's voices is no future at all. So when trust is strong, innovation soars. When people are empowered, nations rise. And when ASEAN leads, the world takes notice. Let's now listen to the voices of ASEAN's own peoples, their hopes, their concerns, and their dreams for our region. 11 voices from 11 nations, sharing the aspirations of the peoples of ASEAN.
We, the people of ASEAN, as representative of Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, and the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and Timor-Leste. We come together here believing our voices will guide the future of our region.
We want ASEAN to be an open and caring society where it places its peoples at the heart of its commitment, ensuring policy truly serve the needs of its people and engage in a meaningful people participation in the process.
we implore ASEAN to promote good governance, protect human security, and uphold justice as well as rule of law.
We hope ASEAN remain a region of peace, stability, and shared security. We count on ASEAN to ensure affordable, accessible healthcare and to strengthen regional cooperation in responding to health challenges and future pandemics.
We urge ASEAN to take bold actions to confront climate change and safeguard our environment.
We desire ASEAN to pursue inclusive and sustainable development that leaves no one behind.
We wish ASEAN to advance equality and empower women, youth, and marginalized communities.
We expect ASEAN to protect migrant workers' rights and ensure fair labor practices.
We envision the ASEAN will expand the access to quality of education and bridge the digital divide.
We believe that the ASEAN identity, both inherently and constructively, is not far from reality. And we entrust ASEAN to strengthen its community through deeper people-to-people connectivity.
And lastly, we dream of ASEAN to stand with its people, for its people, and by its people.
Once again, let's give a big round of applause to our presenters representing all Southeast Asian countries. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN People's Aspirations. Please give another round of applause. And of course, we have heard the voices of the youth of ASEAN. And I would like to also hear who are with us today, representing all 11 nations of Southeast Asia. Can I hear the voices or the claps from those of you traveling to Jakarta from Brunei? There you go. And what about from Cambodia? Louder, please. There are people out there from Cambodia. And of course, Indonesia. I'm reading this in alphabetical order, ladies and gentlemen. And then from Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, Timor-Leste. All right, and now give a big round of applause for ASEAN, for Southeast Asia. What a wonderful, of course, experience for us to gather here today to hear the voices and, of course, to voice our aspirations and hope for a better Southeast Asia. But nevertheless, once again, we'd like to invite each and every one of you to share your moments to everyone who is not able to come here, but to be able to voice it on our platforms on social media, from the ASEAN for the People's Conference events, and of course, the activities that we'll be joining in for these next 2 days. You can upload them on our social media, on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and of course, Facebook, using the hashtag AFPC 2025. And also don't forget to tag at FPC Indo, and of course, at ASEAN for the Peoples. So who is ready here to join in for all the conference and of course the plenary session? Can I hear a round of applause?